In yesterday's video, we made a beautiful rose quartz cold process soap. And today, we're making the matching body butter. This rich, creamy butter is filled with vitamins A, E, and C, and is aptly named for its vitamin and replenishing properties. In this episode of Thermal Mermaid, we're making our rose quartz crystal healing body butter. This might look like a summertime cake icing, but it's a rich skin moisturizer made from a combination of oils that will stay in this thick icing consistency long after it's been bottled up. You only need just a tiny bit at the touch of your finger for complete coverage, which makes just a few grams of this last forever. In fact, if we were to turn this into a lotion, this tiny crystal dish in front of you is holding enough product to make 2 full 16-ounce bottles of lotion. Now in this video, we'll cover what goes into the body butter, but if you want the full recipe that includes my notes on how to make variations and the optional vitamins, you can find the printable materials in the Thermal Mermaid's member section. Scroll down to the recipe collection, click on lotions and butters, and then scroll down until you find the one that's titled Rose Quartz Body Butter. Click on that, and that'll give you all the extra information if you want to try this at home. Now this body butter is made by whipping together white refined shea butter. This is filled with vitamins A, E, K, and F. Now we don't want to melt this, just add it to the kitchen stand in its solid form and turn the mixer on low and it'll start breaking up. Next goes the cocoa butter, which is packed full of vitamin E. Now you do need to melt this one down, otherwise it'll just be too hard to whip into the cream and it won't combine well. Next goes a little bit of coconut oil. Now this can feel greasy, so when you want to tweak this recipe to your liking, I start with the coconut oil. This is all fat. There are actually no vitamins in coconut oil, so its properties are purely moisturizing. Next we'll add avocado oil, which will soak right into your skin. This one contains vitamin E and D, and it's the E that's the skin-loving vitamin in this case. Avocado oil in lotion recipes is like liquid gold on your skin. Next, we'll add some clear jojoba. Now this is a wax that contains E and also some minerals. As a wax, it doesn't really absorb, but it coats and it traps moisture into your skin. This leaves you with a soft, velvety feel across the top of your skin. Let's get a glimpse inside the mixer and you can see that all our oils look like buttercream frosting. Now this is nice, but we want the texture to look like wedding cake sugar frosting. After a few minutes of whipping some air into this combination, it'll take on a fluffier look. Now we'll add in a few more ingredients, and these can be optional. First, I'll add in my fragrance. Now this fragrance matches the rose quartz cold process soap we made yesterday, so it's 1/2 Victorian rose and 1/2 clean type from Nature's Garden. This is primarily a rose grapefruit, and its combination of citrus floral is light, soft, and it has a morning energy to it. I'm going to add a little bit of arrowroot. Now you can use cornstarch as well, and this is used to help the oils fluff, and it will give it a little bit of a drier texture. So if your butter feels too greasy to you when you test it, then either you're using too much, or you can add another spoonful of arrowroot to help adjust that feel for you. Now finally, in this bowl, I'm adding L-absorbic acid. I'm adding vitamin C to the butter. Now vitamin C is one of the golden anti-aging vitamins that help repair skin damage. This is completely optional, and there's a little trick to this which I'll talk to you about in just a moment. Now this doesn't take too long, and you can see that once we've added the arrowroot and we let the mixer work for just a few minutes, we have that beautiful texture that we want very quickly. Now I'll mention here, your butter is going to double in volume, so just be aware that whatever size batch you're making, make sure that the total amount stays to less than 1/2 of the size of your mixing bowl. Once I'm finished mixing, it's time to make the butter match the color of the matching soap that we made yesterday. So I'm going to separate my recipe out into 3 bowls, and then I'm going to lightly color 2 parts with slightly different shades of pink to match the rose quartz, and then we'll pipe it into our containers from there. Now so far I have these gorgeous light fluffy white oils. Here you can get an up-close look at this beautiful texture that I'm working with. Your butter should look just like this. Now you see why it was important that we use the white refined shea butter. Now this version has been processed to remove that natural nutty scent, so it won't compete with the fragrance that we added. And our butter is white, so we can color it now without any yellow tint. And you do get more of the vitamins in the raw version, but you'll have to decide if the smell of the butter goes with the project that you want to make. So in this cream, I needed to use the bleached shea. The color we're using here is Amaranth Pink. This is a soft rose color, and I'm going to put slightly different amounts into 2 parts. Now when you're making lotions and creams, even the lightest colors can transfer onto your skin when it's being rubbed in. And remember, this is cosmetic grade mica, which is essentially just eyeshadow. So you want to be careful to use just enough to tint the color of your product, but not enough to turn your skin pink. By the way, if you accidentally do use too much, it'll go away. You just keep rubbing it in. But if you do want some kind of a bold color in your item, then what you do is you add just a little amount of butter into a bowl, you give it the bold color that you want, and then you put it randomly back into your piping bag. And then this way you'll end up with ribbon streaks of a bright color without having to color the entire batch. Now a moment ago you saw me add a vitamin C to the recipe. Now this is something that I love for my use, but it's not always as easy as adding it in as a powder into the body butter. This recipe is 100% oil with no water. The vitamin C is soluble in water, not oil. So technically the vitamin C powder won't dissolve unless you dissolve it in water first before you add it into the recipe. Which you can do this normally for lotions, and you can do it for this recipe as well. But the moment you add water, you need to add a preservative. The powder I have is such a fine dust that I can't feel it in the recipe, so this works fine for me. However, a lot of vitamin C powders aren't like that, and if you just throw it in, you might end up feeling the crystals, and you might not like that effect. Now, if you want the alternate version of how to add a little water and preservative with the vitamin C, I have that written into the notes in the printable materials, and you can find that in the links below. Once I have a few different variations of colors along with the white, I'm going to load this all up into a piping bag, and I'm just scooping it in alternating colors. The result will give me fine streaks of pink throughout the finished product, and this will match the rose quartz colors beautifully. There's a large star tip at the end of the bag. You might want to just find the largest star that you can. This stuff is fluffy and stiff. It's not at all like piping soap where you have a window of time where the consistency is just right. This will stay fluffy and pipeable until you're ready to transfer it into your packaging. So you can take your time and move slowly, which is good because once you touch the oils or you get your fingerprints on the containers, it becomes a mess. So just take the time you need to keep everything nice and clean. As I fill these, I have the matching soap sitting right next to the butter. Now if you like to watch the rose quartz cold process soap being made, you'll see the techniques I used to get the stone looking veins and the crusted crystals inside the bar. Just click the card at the top and you can see this project come to life right in front of your eyes. Now bacteria won't grow in oils, so this recipe will last for several months without the need for a preservative. But if you're packaging this recipe for sale, I would definitely add a preservative. When people are sticking their fingers into the container, or if moisture is introduced inside the container, you can still get bacteria and mold that grows especially around the neck and under the ring of the cap. These containers were soaked in hot soapy water and then spritzed down with rubbing alcohol. I don't touch them unless I have gloves on until the product is packaged and sealed. So you still do want to take every precaution in minimizing exposure to bacteria, despite the fact that the product itself won't grow any mold or bacteria. Now typically you can make your lotions last longer by putting them in the refrigerator, but I don't like to put body butters in the fridge. They end up getting hard. The texture is somewhere between the shea and the coconut butter, and then I have to scrape the oil out, and I like to use it when it's soft. So I keep these in a cool, room temperature place. For me, that's about 65-70 degrees, but of course if you live in a hot place where things are likely to generally melt, then you might want to consider the fridge. I have noticed a tiny bit of separation that happens at the bottom of the container when I put them in the fridge for storage and then bring them out again, and that doesn't seem to happen when they stay in the cabinet at room temperature. And obviously I made way more than 5 containers. I'm just filling them this tall so you can get a good look at the texture, so you can see how nice and rich and how this butter behaves when you just pile it up. So here's our final product of the Rose Quartz Crystal Healing Body Butter. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Thermal Mermaid, and if you want tons of other DIY lotion and butter recipes, you can find them posted at thermalmermaid.com. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, please let me know by hitting the thumbs up button. And if you'd like to see more of what we're making, don't forget to subscribe to this channel for the next installment. I've got some shampoos being cooked right now, so those will be coming up soon, hopefully this week. I thought I'd give you a little demonstration of what this looks like on the back of my skin, and as I was doing it, I completely forgot that this was butter. I was making lotions all week last week, and I ended up taking about 4 times more than I should have, and it didn't even dawn on me until I realized that I was rubbing this in for over a minute. So actually, you just touch this with your finger and it'll completely cover the back of your hand. So this is just a little bit of a blooper there. It looks a little bit on the greasy side, and that was my faux pas right there at that moment. I should have used much, much less. Okay, soapers, lotion makers, DIY enthusiasts, thank you for joining me today. I'll see you in the next video.